we're really thinking about how Europe is a personal thing. And so what is your personal Europe?
Well, I know that was also another coincidence. I actually have my personal Europe sitting here with me. I have 4 friends who came to visit, and there's a German journalist traveling across Europe doing work about Brexit. And it's my Polish friend who came to Wales with me 20 years ago, and my Greek-British friend here as well, who's a policymaker and a wonderful chef. And we are sitting here, in Cardiff, in Wales. So this is my personal Europe. It's the people that choose to live as Europeans, and despite the storms brewing, it seems like it is all down to personal relationships for me, and how you bond with people and how you stick by people.
How do you see your personal Europe?
My personal Europe at the moment is it really lies within people, because I didn't really have this feeling perhaps when I was talking to you in March, but the further this catastrophe is going, the more I'm feeling whether actually I want to stay in the UK, which is really heartbreaking, and it's really quite shocking for me, because I always thought that I'm gonna grow old in the UK, so suddenly coming to terms with the fact that this might not be the place where I want to live then takes the carpet from behind my feet and from underneath my feet, and the only stability and certainty is the people that I have around me, so be it friends or family, and then also myself, because I also send the 2 self-portraits ish, because they are my shadows and reflections. So how can we move on? How can we move on from this uncertainty, which is very dehumanized and depersonalized, so completely opposite of what you were asking. So the only place to look is within our community and within the closeness of the bonds and relationships we have.
That's a very good and very sad answer.
A couple of months ago I went to a pub in Hove, and I thought everything in Brighton and Hove is very Romanian. So I had this really weird situation where I went into this pub and it was full of Brexiteers. And within 5 minutes I was asked 3 times where I was from and when I was going home. And I said, well, actually, I do live here. And they said, oh, where do you live? And I said, oh, well, just by the cricket ground. And they said, oh, I didn't know there was a hotel there. And so I didn't tell them that I was actually their local councillor.
The greatest thing for me in Europe is because when I was young, and I had a Serbian father, and my mother is German, came from Czech when after war. And for me, when I was young, traveling was always with borders. You were controlled at borders, and this always made you feel kind of like odd, and I don't have a German passport to that time. And I think for me today, it's great that we are one nation in Europe, that you can travel without controls, even having the same currency in a lot of countries, and feeling kind of like of a unit, because only that we have no borders. And of course, it's also feeling, if you travel through Europe, it's kind of like you feel having a same heritage, because the Romans have been everywhere, the Teutonics have been in Italian, the Vikings have been there. So you feel kind of like of this spirit, this heritage also, that always people went around and came to other places. And that makes it for me a bit personal, that I feel that I'm in a big region where we have a common heritage and we can go everywhere we want to. That's my Europe. And peace, of course.
What are the big things? Well, we've got a new commission team coming in, and a new EU Council president, and that is going to change things. I think we're going to see a very different flavour from a different style of leadership from Ursula von der Leyen than you saw from Jean-Claude Juncker. She's going to be much more energetic. She's going to be much more assertive. I think they're much more conscious of the world around them than perhaps Juncker was. So they're constantly thinking about Europe sort of squeezed between America and China, and how do they make sure that Europe is not a victim of this kind of big power clash, and how can it stand up for its own interests? And I think that is a really important lesson for Britain right now, because the world is dividing into blocks, and in Europe I think they only feel even more emboldened in that kind of worldview that Europe is stronger as a bloc, and that of course could be problematic for Britain.
Quite a few of the onlookers as we marched past were actually very positive and very friendly. We saw people waving, we saw people clapping, which was a really heartening contrast to the really quite sickening attitudes and gestures and spitting and all the rest of it which was going on from the protesters the anti-march protesters at street level.
So this is Tomek Kaminsky, and Tomek, can you tell us what is your personal Europe?
My personal Europe is about hospitality. It's not peculiar to Europe, hospitality, but I think we should work on it. We should be hospitable to other continents, to other nations, and to ourselves. First we accept ourselves, and then we accept others, strangers, refugees. Hospitality was promoted in the epics of different cultures, in the Gilgamesh, in the Mahabharata, in the Ramayana, in the Hebrew Bible, in the New Testament, in the Quran. And now we need a revival of hospitality. So hospitality is my personal Europe, and Poland at the moment is inhospitable, hostile. We must change that, and we must make all Europe hospitable. Thank you, and love to my beloved Brighton from Lublin.
Thank you. And
Thank
this is
you.
Pavel Mashkov, and
my personal Europe, my personal vision of Europe is Europe without borders. Because I remember in the early 90s, before Poland was part of the European Union, how difficult it was to cross the borders, how difficult it was to travel from the west to east and from east to west, how difficult it was to come to London. You always needed to have a special invitation with many signatures, and I really dislike this past when you needed so many permits to travel, and now I associated this kind of borders with going to Russia or Belarus, places that are still not really democratic. So my personal vision of Europe is Europe of democracy, of equality, and Europe without borders.